Hello everybody! So I found a review actually of Elsword on MMORPG.com and I thought, you know what, might as well read it over with you guys, see what they thought about the game, because it's pretty interesting to hear about, Elsword, the game I play, the game I love, heard from another perspective from a reviewer, of someone who I assume reviews a lot of MMOs and a lot of RPGs, see what they think about the game, coming from a background of playing a bunch of these and like how it stacks up to other ones. So let's just go over this. This one's written by Robert Biard. I haven't read much here except for the score, which is pretty good. 8 out of 10. That's like really good. So already I'm just like, okay, so they enjoyed it. Like that's really cool. Okay, so it starts off with the title, Elsword, the 2D MMO with real depth. It's easy to think at first Elsword is just a button-mashing pseudo MMO with but there's a lot of depth to the game once you get past the early game experience. They do a great job of laying everything out simply and then layering the complexity on top of it, so you learn everything in a new way that makes sense and the results doesn't seem complex at all. However, if you were to skip to the end game, most people would quickly be in way over their heads. First of all, I like that they call this a pseudo MMO because honestly I agree with that statement. Elsword, I think its gameplay is so amazing and it's so not an MMO that calling it pseudo MMO I think is right on the nose, because with its whole side-scrolling beat 'em up kind of thing, it more reminds me of like Super Smash Brothers type of gameplay, almost. And it's not usually the MMO experience of like kind of like the whole top-down or behind-the-shoulder MMO, and then you just gotta 8 million skills on your bar, and then you just mashing them all out, waiting for your cooldowns to finish, maybe slightly dodging the enemy's attacks, the enemy doesn't attack, maybe you tank it or super armor it. There's a lot of like dodging and platforming and just like combo steps, and all of it's like really cool. It makes it a really fun game, but gameplay wise it doesn't share much from many common MMOs, and that's honestly why I like it. So it's glad that they made that distinction that it's not quite an MMO even though it is an MMO. So let's talk about their score. So they gave the game an 8. I think that's a really good score. I think honestly it's very fitting. I would think so, but then again I like the game a lot. Maybe I would give it a 9 or a 10, but I know definitely people who would give this like a 3 or a 5 or a 6. But she gave it an 8, or he, I'm not sure. It says Robin. It could be either one, right? So they give it an 8. They said the pros are a ton of player choice in how you play, including if you want to play with other players or not. That's true. The game wants you to play with people, but if you don't want to, you can, because solo queue buff makes you really strong if you're just going in there alone, and if you just do auto party in general, you'll probably get partied with people, so I would say that's true. An absolute abundance of story and content. I suppose so. I don't play many MMOs besides this, so I'm not sure how it stacks up in terms of content. I think the story is okay. I don't think the Elsword story is super amazing. I think a lot of the early on stuff is good when we're meeting all the characters. Everyone's backstories, like individual stories, are really cool. But when the story's like in that middle part, I think there's like a lot of main characters. So having all the main characters try to do something important is kind of difficult, and I think the story suffers for that. But hey, if this person thinks it's a good story, I can't fault them for it because I think it's pretty solid. I just don't think it's amazing. Gameplay at first would seem simple, but has a lot of complexity to it. This is like, I think their main point about this whole article, about this whole review, is that it seems simple at first, but it's pretty complex to keep going into it. I say that's pretty agreeable. There's certain skills and like ways you want to aim your class. Some characters are easier than others. Some characters are harder than others. And there's also these different things like spring stepping, like X dropping, knowing about KD values and all that cool stuff. So yeah, definitely agree with that. Cons. Everything is voiced at the beginning, but as you get closer to newer content, voiceover disappears. I'm not quite sure what they're talking about. I think they're talking about the English dub, which it's funny to think about because, coming from my perspective, playing this game for a while, if it is the dub that they're talking about, the English dub, it's kind of funny because the English dub is like more or less an added on content. Like, it wasn't even there in the first place and then they just added that on. Like, I'm curious if Elsword never made the English dub, would this even be a con? Because I'm pretty sure the Korean dub is over everything. It's just the English dub that isn't. And I don't know if that counts as a whole con, but if they're trying to find cons and that's the best thing they can think of, honestly, that's more better for the game if they have to more or less scratch this hard to find a con. Next con, limited sound and graphics options. I'm not quite sure what that means. I've never been like a sound or graphics hog kind of person, but I think they're fine. Like, what else do you want for sound options? I don't know. Graphics options, I guess the game could look a little better, maybe? I don't know what they're looking for. Do they wanting it to look maybe less intense? Like, try to make the game look good, but like, make it run smoother kind of thing? Like, don't quite know what they're talking about with those cons. This is the second con. And the last one is, no way to convert in-game currency to cash shop currency. First question, do other games do this? I don't know. I don't play many other MMOs like I said before, but do other MMOs do that? And my second answer, my answer to that would be not innately. There's not an innate way to convert your in-game currency to cash shop currency, but if you use the board, if you trade with players, you can do that quite easily. A lot of the stuff in the cash shop, like certain costumes, ice burners, all those can be bought with in-game money if people put them on the board. Certain things obviously cannot, like job changes and things like that. But most things that you would actually want, you can use in-game currency to get these cash shop items. Although it's not explained very well because it's very much a player-to-player interaction type of thing. So I can see why they put it here. I guess is that a con though? Is that really a con? That you can't change your in-game money to cash shop money? Is that such a big con that it makes it an 8 instead of like a 9 or a 10? I don't know. I think it's just that they were looking for cons to make it even like, oh, pros and cons. And they were trying to find something because maybe the game was so good. I like to see it in that positive light. So yeah, I'll see it in that positive light. Okay, let's start reading the review. Elsword is an interesting mix of MMO, platformer, dungeon grind, and fighting game, which is much more than it seems at first glance. It's easy to think at first Elsword is just a button-mashing pseudo-MMO, but there's a lot of depth to the game once you get past the early experience. They do a good job of layering everything out simply, and then layering the complexity on top of it, so you learn everything in a way that makes sense, and as a result it doesn't seem all that complex. However, if you were to skip to the end of the game, most people will quickly be in way over their heads. This is our Elsword review. Okay, so that's like introing everything. One of the first things I noticed with Elsword is there are a huge variety of choice built into a limited structure. There are 12 characters you can choose from, and each of them have their own storyline and personality, which makes them distinct from each other. Additionally, each character offers a range of complexity and combat speed, which gives them a lot of playstyle variation. They also each have 3 different base jobs they start off with, and each job has 2 more jobs, which are evolution of the base jobs and unlock as progress is made through the game. So while the player doesn't have the freedom to create their own character from scratch, there's a lot to choose from. Okay, this is another kind of thing I wanted to talk about. In a lot of other MMOs, you can just make a character. You make a whole character, you customize the character, like how their face looks, what kind of body type they have, like their height, and like their starting out clothes or everything like that. Elsword is different, and with Elsword, you essentially are like a character predetermined by the game. You know, you're not yourself. You're Raven, you're Rena, you're Aisha. You're playing as these characters that already have like a backstory. And in turn, I think it makes it less like an MMO and more like an actual like RPG, like a console RPG almost. But I think that's another plus to it, in my opinion anyway. I've never been too into the, okay, this is me in this in-game world. I've been more into like, oh, I'm playing this character. This is the character I'm playing as. You know, I just find that more enjoyable, and I like how they pointed out here because it is different. It is very different. You can't choose from scratch. You use a character that they already have, and then you advance along this predetermined job path. Like Aura will always use a spear. She will never not use a spear. But you can have Aura with the spear with like electric powers. I think Aspar has some, or maybe it's Shakti. I don't know. I don't know why I picked Aura to talk about that. But you can be like 1 of 3 different auras, and then each aura does like a slightly different thing. You know, it will always be that type of aura. There will only be 3 classes of aura. But still, at the same time, you know, each character is so different in themselves that I think people can enjoy playing each different character and find like, okay, this is my main. This is who I want to play. I like this gameplay style. I like this system. Maybe you like Way of the Sword a lot. Maybe you like, I don't know, Nature's Force a lot, or like Eve's Core, or you like Nova Imperator's Overheat system. Everybody is so unique enough that you can find your niche without just making without just like trying everything on one character. You had to make a whole new character to try out something different. and with that you like experience their new story, and everybody looks different, everybody has different weapons, everybody's so distinct. There's so distinctness in each of the characters, which does help the story a bit. I complained about the story earlier, but it does help the story a bit that each of these characters are pretty different in like their motivation and their personalities. So it's a good and a bad thing, I think. You know, it's bad in the sense that like it's less personal to you, but I think it's good in the sense that it helps the game itself, it helps the story. If you like that kind of thing, like playing a character instead of making yourself or making some person, I suppose, it helps in that aspect. Alright, let's keep going. Levels come fast in Elsword and get to the point where I could unlock my second job, and it didn't take very long. Without extra effort, I just followed the storyline and did the quest, and the second jobs unlocked quickly. The third job, however, felt like it took much longer to do, but it isn't an unusual system for most games where the higher levels come much slower. It didn't slow to the point where I felt like I was never ever going to get there, or as if the grind was unbearable though. Speaking of grind, it's important to understand this is a dungeon grind game. There are a ton of different dungeons to be done throughout leveling, but nonetheless you will find yourself running the same ones over and over and over, especially at max level. But the dungeons are interesting and fun. Even though the multiplayer dungeons can be completed solo if you like, which gives a lot of players a lot of flexibility to playstyle, there are bonuses which are given to do if you group up with others. These bonuses increase when you group up with the same people repeatedly. I don't think that's right, but okay. So it's certainly worth grouping up if you can, but not required. Okay, talk about this for a little bit. Yes, early leveling. I would say 1 to 70 is easy peasy. Easy peasy. You might slow down a bit to get your first job and your second job, and if you want any of the locked skills. But pretty much 1 to 70, really easy. 71 to like 89 or like 94, decently like in the middle. And then like 95 to 99 is like torture. Like repeatedly do this dungeon over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, honestly, I don't like that. I think if you follow the story, it's a bit more bearable, but you might. I think the game stops giving you story quests about when you're maybe 97-ish, because I think you have to do secret dungeons to just get 99, or maybe you can follow the story and completely cap out. I'm not sure, but they do talk about that. They do talk about how the first and second jobs are super easy to get, and third job is hard to get because you have to get level 99, obviously. And you know, again, as us older players know, third job was very much a new thing. I think it came out about a year ago. I don't even think it's a year old, third jobs, but that's why it takes so hard to get to third job from second job. It's because it's such a new thing, new content. It had to be unlocked at level 99 after Transcendence. They don't really talk about Transcendence here, but probably because it's like, oh, this is just the next step. Maybe they thought that was their job, actually. I'm kind of curious now. But that wasn't their job. It's also interesting that they talk about like how this is a dungeon grind game. Yeah, I would agree with that. This is very much a dungeon grind game. There's a couple dungeons do a couple more times than less. They've definitely decreased that over the years, and KR just got another update where story quests give you more EXP, so there's even less repetitive dungeon designs. Because I do think dungeons are unique within themselves, but having to run them repeatedly over and over and over again can get pretty annoying if you just want to level up. I'm glad they point out that the dungeons are very different and they're having uniqueness, and they like how unique they are. You know, big ups to Elsword for that. And you know, I've been running these dungeons for a long time, so it's like, okay, I know what this dungeon is, I know what this dungeon is. But for a new player, who this is, it's cool that they like the uniqueness of the dungeons. And I think the dungeons are interesting and fun enough to be, you know, repeatedly spamming, more or less. This isn't true what they said. When you group up with the same people repeatedly, you get more EXP. I mean, they probably just don't know. And just group up with people. Especially if you're a new player, I would say just group up with people. Just use the auto dungeon queuing. It just makes it a lot easier. Maybe that's what they were talking about. Anywho, on to the next paragraph. This might be a video by them. I might check that out at the end. Here we go. There's a lot of interesting complexity to combat, and some of the ways it's accomplished by its turning normal convention on its head. For example, in a lot of games, knocking an opponent down will give bonuses, and it's something that you want to do. However, in Elsword, if you knock down an opponent in PvE, they'll get damage reduction, and in PvP, it will cause the combo to end. Knockdowns can happen by using special abilities or a certain amount of attacks have been reached. Managing the knockdown counter is also an important part of mastering combat. Learning the combos and how they work is also a huge part of mastering a character. Honestly, it's super interesting that they're talking about this, because I definitely did not know, like, I knew about it when I first started the game, kind of like vaguely, but like it seems like they know a pretty decent amount. Like not knocking things down is good because it gives enemies defense reduction, and knocking down people in PvP causes your combo to end. And just like knowing the word kind of knockdown and using its special certain abilities to keep it reduced, like managing its counter, like I'm impressed. Good job, Robin. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I respect it. I respect it. But this person probably knows how to go in depth with MMO stuff, so I'm not that surprised. But I'm still like, okay, I respect that. It's pretty decent, like mid to high level kind of learning for knockdown stuff, and I suppose I suppose knocking down people in other MMOs or things like that would be good because I guess it maybe stops their attacks or lets you wail on them. But yeah, and elsewhere you don't really want to do that because in dungeons, like she said, damage reduction, PvP, the combo's over. But yeah, okay, I respect it. I respect it. Pets are an important aspect to the game because when they are leveled up all the way, they have a variety of skills which can be quite useful in dungeons. How do you level up pets? By filling up their affinity bar, of course. While in dungeons and with your pet, summon every time an enemy is killed, the affinity bar will increase. However, if your pet's hunger is below 60, it will not increase its affinity, and if its hunger goes below 40, it will lose affinity. So making sure your pet is well fed is important. There are a variety of things to feed your pet. Some of the easiest to acquire are Eltree seeds, Eltree fruit, equipment, and QPL jellies. Eltree fruit is easily obtained through the item mall cash shop, but they are the only food bought from these. But they are the only food item bought from there, as most food items are obtained through playing the game. There are also some story items in your pet's inventory for them to automatically eat when they become hungry. Yep. Okay, so talk about the pet for a little bit. Yeah, I would agree with all of these. They listed out all the pet food. I think maybe they thought there's more pet food, but this is pretty much it. Eltree seeds, Eltree fruit, equipment, and QPL jellies. That's pretty much all the pet food that's in the game. But yeah, I wouldn't say Eltree seeds and fruit are easy to get. You get them from events, but maybe cash up items that could be assumed easy to get, quote unquote. But pets are pretty useful. They didn't talk about pet fetch. Maybe they don't know about pet fetch, but pet fetch is super useful. I recommend getting it for all your pets, and you can get them in the cash shop, the ED cash shop. In the cash shop, there's an ED market. I wonder if they talk about that later. I'm kind of curious. Okay, let us move on. There are two main currencies as Elsword. ED, and Kaching. Oh, okay, they're all talking about currency. ED is the currency which is earned in-game, and Kaching is bought with cash. At first, I thought the rate of ED gain was a bit high. I was over 10k pretty much all the time. However, once I started poking around the shop some, I realized the cheapest thing there cost 20 million ED, which just makes me wonder why they didn't lower the amount you get and make everything a bit cheaper. Obviously, when you do higher level dungeons, you earn ED at a higher rate. ED is also used to identify gear you find and the usual, i.e. soulbind, so you can use it. What? Oh, and unseal. Okay, I guess soulbind is what it's called in other games. Okay. Kaching is bought at 100 Kaching per $1 US, but this does get very slightly when they have specials going on. There are even things for sale in the Kaching shops for 100 units each, so everything isn't priced widely like it is for ED shops. For the most part, everything is bought for the cash shop. Is only cosmetic in nature. The one exception is the pet food I mentioned before, and pets themselves. Pets have different skills, and depending on what skill you want your pet to have, you may need to buy them on the cash shop. Also, people who want to buy food from the cash shop might have a bit easier time leveling up their pets. None of this is a real deal breaker for me though, because at the end of the day, pets didn't seem like a huge deal. They are certainly nice to have and do help, but the benefits doesn't seem to be incredible enough to unbalance the game between people who pay and those who don't. Plus, there are quite a few pets available through playing the game directly and participating in events. Agree pretty much with everything they said, except the fact that like pets don't seem like a huge deal. Again, I don't think they've discovered enough about pet fetch. I think pet fetch is one of the best things about pets. Yeah, I didn't discover about it, but oh well. Pet food is not that important to get. Don't spend your Kaching on it. Honestly, Kaching is mostly used for like sort of the in-game items help you better at the game, like increase your L resonance pages, or get the shared bank, or ice burners, or enhancement events, getting enhancement items. That's the best place to use your Kaching. Honestly, I like how much value ED honestly has. And in terms of like gaining ED, he probably just gained ED from running dungeons. I don't think they sold much. There isn't much to sell until endgame. But yeah, most of the ED you gain is from selling things, not from running dungeons per se. And there's always something to sell. You know, with secret dungeons, you can sell the droppable items from there that you can barrier frags. There you go. You can sell barrier frags and Hurugs. You can sell Hurug gear, and obviously all you know you can sell powders or L tiers. There's always something to grind to to make ED from. But obviously the game doesn't tell you that. That's more of a community thing. Something you need to understand from the community. So I can understand why they didn't kind of understand that aspect. Because yeah, 20 million may seem high to somebody starting out, but 20 million to other people are just like, oh, okay. Then you do a couple secret dungeon runs, sell a couple barrier frags, or do a couple arena dungeons, sell some powders, sell some apples from PvP, things like that. But yeah, it's nice to see the economy essentially tackled by a newbie coming into it, because the economy in any game can be really confusing if you don't understand how it works. So it's funny that they put so much value in the cash shop when honestly the cash shop doesn't have that much value. There's more value in like farmable dungeon items like L tiers. You know, you can't buy L tiers from the Kaching shop. You get L tiers from dungeons, and that's, I would say, one of the most valuable items. That 4 skills, you know, things that drop from dungeons. You know, Kaching isn't that valuable. Like Iceburners are really good, but like I would say that's the top of the what you want to get with your Kaching is either enhancements or Iceburners. So yeah, interesting. Okay, it looks like this is over. So let's finish this up. Oddly enough, what bothered me most about the game was the quality of life issues more than anything else. Oh boy, here we go. For example, it frustrated me there is no separate slider for the voiceovers and the only options are the background music and the SFX. The reason this particularly bothers me is because I greatly like the SFX to be super low, music somewhere in the middle, and the voice to be full so I can hear everything easily. The other thing which was frustrating is I had to make it all the way through the tutorial before I was able to access the options menu. That's not true, you can exit it, but you probably didn't know that. Since everything starts off at full the tutorial was just a loud mess for me. The last annoyance for me was the launcher. It had no mechanism to remember my login. True. Which is probably a security feature or something, but for me, it was really annoying and it wouldn't at least remember my email. Overall, okay, before I get to the last sentence, let me just talk about this. So this is honestly, seems like their biggest problem with the game is probably why their negative aspects up here, their cons, were like very, I would say almost shallow and like inconsequential. I think this is like their biggest downside with the game, is that what bothered them the most was the quality of life from like weird things that I've honestly never thought of, but I guess it's true. I think the main thing is the sound balancing for the English dub of this game is really bad. There are certain characters that have a good volume, like Raven, Rena, Aisha, Elsword, and there are characters that have horrible volume levels, like Ad, Luanceal, Aura. There are a couple others, but their volume is super low. Like it's very inconsistent balancing with the English dub. And yeah, you can only influence the background music and sound, and I think sound effects, so you can't affect the dub at all. And it seemed like it bothered them because they like it to be a specific way, and I can agree to that at some point. You know, if we had like an SFX, like if they divided up like background music, sound effects, voice, you know, it would be nicer. There's no reason to not have that. So I can see how it can be very frustrating. And the fact that the launcher doesn't remember your password or remembers your email, I think it is a security feature maybe. Maybe it's the fact that this is an older game. I'm not sure. But I can see how that could be annoying. To me, it's just like, you know, that's your username, that's your password, simple stuff. You know, it doesn't take very long. But to someone who plays a lot of MMOs, maybe that's like at the point of like, oh my goodness, I had to put a password again, which was my password for this kind of thing. So maybe from their unique perspective, that's the reason why it annoyed them so much. But considering this is what bothered them the most, is these like little quality of life issues, I think that's very good for the game. Is that the gameplay in itself, the story in itself, the way all the systems work with the equipment, how you level up, the job changes. The fact that they like that so much, that they didn't complain about that all in this little paragraph. They only complained about the SFX and the login. You know, two of probably both the biggest and the smallest things. You know, as sound effects are important, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the depth of the game. It's just like little annoyances that tick you off every time it happens. So I'd say that's props for the game. And finally off, their last paragraph here, it says, overall, I had a ton of fun with Elsword. It's fun and a quirky game. It's bursting with content. If it's a dungeon grinding game with minor elements of platforming sounds cool, it's worth a try. Like I mentioned before, the only real downsides for me were in the quality of life stuff, but those weren't enough to kill my enjoyment. Note, our copy was reviewed on PC with a code provided by PR. Okay, so like I said before, they had an awesome time with the game. They gave it an 8 out of 10. It's an amazing score. It seems like they played Hellboy, the Immortal. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I can't really see their IGN, but hey, let me not snoop. Let me check out this video. This is them playing. I think this is them playing. Alright, so I just checked this video out, and pretty much they're just comparing low-level dungeons to high-level dungeons. Maybe it's like for like the difficulty thing, or it's like just what these MMO sites do. But it's pretty much, it's very simple. Also, I noticed that they were, in that video, they were using the dub. I personally like the dub, but a lot of people don't like the dub, and the fact that they're using the dub makes me think, oh, this is probably why they had a lot of sound frustrations, because I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the dub has issues with like sound balancing and stuff like that. That's probably why a lot of those complaints were made. Okay, everybody, and that's the Elsword, the 2D MMO with real depth from Robin Beard. First of all, Robin, thanks for playing the game. I'm glad you enjoyed it. 8 out of 10 is an amazing score, guys. It's really great to see a perspective from somebody who plays MMOs a bunch, plays RPGs a bunch, reviews them. You know, see how Elsword compares to these other MMOs, you know, besides like, oh, player base, what's the player base for this game, what's the player base for this game? You know, seeing a score and its quality. This review, over and over and over again, it praised the game for, what's the main thing it praised it for? It's gameplay. What is a game? You know, what's the most important thing about a game? Gameplay, I would say. Their only cons really were some quality of life things about sound and about the login screen. While it is important, I think the main thing is gameplay, and they praised it over and over and over again. So, Robin, thanks so much for playing. I'm glad you had a good time. I hope you keep playing. I honestly hope you keep playing, Robin. And to anybody else who reads this review, you know, this is a great review, honestly, of this game. It's a good first player review. Really good stuff. I suggest you guys, you know, read this. Post a comment. There's a comment section under this. I didn't read much of it, but there you go. If you want to read it, I will link this in the description. If you guys want me to do more things about this, you know, I could go on the Elsword forums and talk about topics they're talking about there. I can go on, I don't know, something else and talk about that. I enjoy talking about this game, and I enjoy seeing other people's perspective about this game, what they think about it, what they think is good about it, what they think is bad about it. I just like talking about this game. So, that is it from me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Check out Robin Beer's review of Elsword, the 2D MMO with real depth. Tell me what you would rate the game out of 10. 8 out of 10? I think I would fall down that range too. I would say the game is 8 out of 10. There's a lot of things that bother me about this game. But overall, I would say it's an amazing game. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. Just personally for me, but I love this game. But 8 out of 10, there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.